Hello world, welcome to NetMath Tech Academy. Today we are going to do a small pie game to make a text box with a cursor. When we play games, there will be many scenarios where we might have to interact with the user and accept input text from them. And it's not really straightforward to make a text box in Pygame unless we use extra Pygame libraries. But now let's focus on how to do it natively with just Pygame, with the events and the keyboard clicks. Okay, so we have created a new Pygame in Replit and it gives us the bootstrap code for us to start with. We have the display surface. Let's go ahead and fill the display surface with plain color, like gray. And I always like to have a clock to control the frame speed. So clock is equal to pygame dot time dot clock. So that way we can do clock dot tick and control the frames per second. Okay, now what we need is a text box. So let's first run and make sure everything is working. Okay, let's say we are adding a text box in the middle of the screen. So for that we need a box. So let's go ahead and draw a box. So how do we draw a box? We go like this by game dot draw dot rect, and we are going to put it in our display surface. Let me just replace this variable. Okay, good. So we are going to draw it in our surface, and for now I'll make the color as white. And now we have to specify the rectangle object. So let's say the box starts at 100, and has a width of 100 and a height of 30. Let's see how that looks. Okay, perfect. So that is our box. Now what we need is we need a way for the user to type the text, and we need to show the text on the screen. So let's assume the user text for now is hello. We want a way to show this on the screen. That means we need a font. So let's go ahead and create a font. It'll be pygame dot font dot sys font. Let's just go with Arial, and let's specify a size, and let's specify bold as false and italic as false. And what we would do next is to create the text surface. Text surface is equal to font dot render. The text is going to be user text. Let's leave this one true and color as black. And now we want to show this text inside this rectangle. So let's accept the text box here. And so we can do um, surface dot split. We want to split the text surface onto the text box. So let's see how this one works. Okay, there we go. We can see our text in our text box. If we want to control the text to be visible in the center of the box, then we can manipulate the x-axis and y-axis and change it. For now, let's continue as this, and let's go ahead and make the event for the key down. So Pygame dot key down. So whenever a key is clicked, we want to find out if it's an alphabet and use it to add it to our text. So let's go ahead and print the event dot Unicode, and we can also check if it's an alphabet or not by doing event dot Unicode dot is alpha. So let's see if that works. So now I'll go ahead and hit the keys A, B, C. Okay. So every time I click an alphabet, it works. And if I hit a space, then it says false. And if I hit numbers also, it's fine. So we want to be, let's say for this Xbox, we only want to allow alphabets. So what we're going to do is we're going to check if whatever that was typed as an alphabet, then what we want to do is we want to edit the user text. So user text will become user text plus event dot unique. So now let's see if it works. So I say I hit E S D F. So that way our text box keeps going, but our box is fixed and our box is not growing according to the text. We can easily fix that. So to do that, what we have to do is we can control the width of the box. So what we are going to do now is instead of fixing the box at a particular location, we are going to use a rectangle object and play with it. So let's make an input rectangle object, which is going to be Pygame dot rect, and we are going to start with the same values that we used here. And we're gonna use this input rect here. So now everything should look the same. And now to center the text, instead of directly using the text box, we are going to use the input rect here. So what we are going to do is input rect dot x plus some value, let's say 5, and input rect dot y plus 5. So that way the text will be more centered and also a little bit spaced out, because we have our input rect, so we are playing with the relative position of the input rect. Once that is done, now we also have to control the width of the input rect. So to do that, we are going to change the input rect width. By default, our width is going to be 30. But what if the text that the user types is more than that? So our input rect width is going to be 30 or whichever is maximum of these two values, 30 or text surface width. So text surface width will depend on the length of the text. So now let's quickly test it. So what we need here is we have to use the method get width. Let's add a little bit to it, like so we have some space. So now if we run it, that's great. Now if we type more text, our input box will grow automatically. Good. All that part is done now. Let's increase this value a little bit and also this value a little bit. Okay. Now if we type more, it stays in it. Good. Now the next thing we want to do is to know how to handle a backspace. If we hit the backspace, we want the user, the text value to get deleted. So what we can do is we can add another if condition here and go even dot key is equal to Pygame dot key underscore backspace or even dot key is equal to Pygame dot key underscore delete. So if that's the case, when user is trying to delete the values, all we have to do is get rid of the last character, which can be done by doing user text and slice it. We want everything from the start except for the last one character. So let's see if this works. So now if I type some text, it still works. I hit delete and the text goes away. Good. Now we want to show a blinking cursor on the text box so we know that's where the focus is. So to do that, what we're going to do is every time before we actually render the text, we are going to change the text. So user text is equal to user text plus the cursor. So that will be the last character. And after actually rendering the text, we want to remove the cursor. So we are going to remove the cursor here by doing user text. If the last character is equal to the cursor, then we are going to use this statement here to remove the cursor. So now let's see if this works. So that way we see the cursor. Now we can type and we can hit back. That's good. But we want the cursor to blink. So we are going to make a variable called cursor and make it true. And we are going to add the cursor only if the cursor variable is true. So if cursor, then we add the cursor and we change the cursor variable to false. Else we change the cursor back to true. So now if we run it, our cursor should blink, but it's blinking really fast, so we can reduce the frame rate and check. Even so, okay, good. Now our cursor is blinking. Why is that? Because we have a flag and we swap our flag. Now, if we don't want to actually change the frame rate but still control the speed of the cursor, we can make it a number and we can check if cursor more 10 is 0. And every time we can simply increase the cursor. So every time when cursor touches a number that is divisible by 10, then we will add the cursor, else we will remove it. So now let's see if it works. Okay, good. Now we can go back and increase our frame rate to 60 because we want again to run at a 60 frame rate. Good. Now if we want it really faster, we can bring down this number. Okay, now our cursor is blinking, all is well. But now we want to make sure if the text box is active or not. So in order to do that, we are going to have another variable active as true. So if active, then we are going to have the active color, or let's call it box color as else. We're going to have box color as, let's say, gray. And we're going to use this box color here. So let's stop and run it. For now, the box color is active, the cursor is blinking. Now we can add one more event here. Is event dot event dot type will be equal to pygame dot mouse down. So what we are going to do here is we are going to check if there is a collision between the point. So if our rectangle, which is our input rect dot collide point event dot mouse. So the point where the mouse was actually clicked, if it was on the rectangle or the input box, then active will be true. Else false. So now let's try this. By default, when the game starts, the text box is active, but if I click somewhere else, it's not active anymore. And only when I click it back, it becomes active. But when it's not active, we don't want to see the cursor blinking, so we can add one more condition here saying and act. So now if we stop and run, so we see the cursor, we click somewhere else, we don't see the cursor. We can now click here and see the cursor again. Now, how do we actually access the text? We already have the text in our user text field. So let's try and access it. So I'm going to try block here, and I'm going to assume the user is going to enter a color. So I try to change my screen color to that. And in the accept block, I'm going to by default fill it with gray color. So now if I stop and run, and now if I delete everything, so now we have an error in this point, so we will have to put this in a try block. We can do except and as for now. We just don't want the exception to happen. Let's try this with the backspace. We see it is active. If I try and enter a color, background changes, so everything is working. There is one problem here. So when I click it, it becomes active, but when it's not active, I'm still able to type into it and hit backspace into it, which should not be allowed. So that means what we have to do is we will have to add a condition here and active. I can put a bracket around this and say unactive. So that way, only when it is active, we can type into it. So now it's not active. I cannot type here. I cannot hit backspace. When it is active, I can type. I can also hit backspace. And I can also type color name. So my background will change. Okay, friends, thank you for tuning in. That's all for today's video. We learned how to make an input text box in Pygame. I'll meet you all in the next one. Bye, world.